A saucer, half an inch of apple cider vinegar, 2 drops of Dawn, stirred in slow so it doesn't foam. Set it on the counter tonight right next to the fruit bowl where they're swarming. Go to bed. By the time the coffee pot kicks on tomorrow, that saucer is a graveyard and your kitchen is quiet, about 40 cents all in. I know you don't want to hear a lecture right now. You want them gone, so that's the trap. That's the one that works tonight, and I'll get to why it works in a second. But first, it's not going to hurt the kids, it's not going to hurt the dog, and there's not one thing in that saucer that drifts out the window and lands on a honeybee. It's vinegar and dish soap. That's the whole arsenal. I'm Walt, by the way. I'm not the truck in your driveway, and I'm not selling you a subscription. I'm just a guy who got tired of paying somebody else to solve a 40-cent problem, and I started writing down what actually worked. Now if you want, you can stop the video right here, go make the saucer, and call it a night. I'd understand. But you'd be back in 3 days wondering why there's a fresh batch hovering over your banana bowl, because we haven't gotten to the real fix yet. We've only knocked down the ones already flying. So sit tight another 12 minutes and I'll walk you through it like I'd walk my brother-in-law Dale through it. And Dale, bless him, has paid for every lesson the hard way. He once spent $90 on a gnat treatment from a guy with a clipboard. $90. To kill a bug you can knock out of the air with breath alone if you've got patience. Here's the part that always gets me a little hot under the collar, and then I'll quit complaining and get to work. The truck charges $60, $120, $200 a visit every month, year after year, and what's coming out of that wand isn't worth a fraction of it. A bowl of vinegar doesn't refill itself, you see. A bowl of vinegar doesn't put a magnet on a truck door. There's no business model in telling you the answer is in your pantry, so nobody tells you. Except me, I guess, and my grandfather, who would have laughed out loud at the idea of paying a man to handle gnats, so... Alright, enough of that. Let's actually fix it. Here's what I'm going to do for you. I'm going to show you exactly the order I do it in my own kitchen, what each piece costs, what it'll do for you, and this is the part most folks skip, what it won't do. Because I'd rather tell you straight than sell you something pretty. So, why do you suddenly have gnats? Most people's first move is to grab a can off the shelf and just hose down the air over the fruit bowl. The little bodies drop. You feel like a hero for about 48 hours. Then there's twice as many. That's because spraying the air kills the grown-ups and leaves the nursery completely alone. Gnats, and most of what we're calling gnats in the kitchen, are actually fruit flies. They aren't really coming in from outside. They're hatching inside your house, right now, in one of 3 places. Until you find the nursery, you can spray till your eyes water, and they'll keep coming back like in-laws at Thanksgiving. There's only 3 real sources. I want you to check them in order. Source number 1 is fruit that's gone a little past its prime. A banana with brown freckles. A peach with a soft thumbprint on it. Tomatoes from the garden sitting in a bowl on the counter because they're too pretty to put away. A fruit fly can smell fermenting sugar from across the room. She lands on that skin and lays her eggs, and you don't see a thing. 2 weeks later, her grandchildren are hovering over your morning coffee like they pay rent. Source number 2 is your drains, the kitchen sink especially. Just past where your eye can see, on the inside walls of that pipe, there's a film. Food bits, grease, a little soap scum. Damp, dark, never disturbed. If I were designing a nursery for drain flies and fungus gnats, I couldn't do better than the inside of a kitchen drain. You can run the hot water for 10 minutes. The film doesn't care, it's stuck to the pipe wall, the bugs keep hatching. Source number 3 is the one that catches everybody by surprise. Your houseplants. Specifically, and this is the key word, your overwatered houseplants. If the top inch of soil in that pothos on the windowsill stays damp all the time, fungus gnats will move in and lay eggs right in that wet topsoil. The babies live down in there eating fungus and tender little roots, and you never see them until they're flying. And here's the thing. You're watering that plant on Tuesday because the calendar says Tuesday, not because the plant asked for it. The soil never dries. You've built them a maternity ward on the windowsill, and you're refilling the water cooler every week. So before you do another thing, take a slow walk through your kitchen and past your plant shelf and ask yourself one question. Where is it damp and sweet and undisturbed? That's your source. Could be just one spot, could be all 3. Found it? Good. Now we go to work on the adults while we shut the nursery down behind them. They don't get to escape and the next batch doesn't get to hatch. That's how you actually end this. Ew. Back to the saucer. Apple cider vinegar, 2 drops of plain dish soap, a little bowl. Here's why it works, and the why is the whole game. Apple cider vinegar smells, to a fruit fly's tiny brain, exactly like fermenting fruit, which to her means dinner and a place to lay eggs. She comes straight in. Now vinegar by itself has surface tension. She can land on top of it, take a sip, and fly off about her business, which doesn't help us. That's what the soap is for. 2 drops of Dawn, stirred gentle so you don't whip it into a foam, breaks the surface tension of the liquid. So now she lands. The surface gives way. Down she goes. End of story. You don't need a fancy trap with a logo on it. You don't need a zapper that buzzes blue all night. You don't need a plug-in that smells like a hotel lobby. A coffee mug with half an inch of cider vinegar and 2 drops of soap set right where they're swarming will be full by morning. If you want to make it work a little better, stretch a piece of plastic wrap over the top of the bowl and poke 5 or 6 holes in it with a fork. They go in, they don't find their way back out. It's optional. The open bowl does the job. I usually don't bother unless my wife's seen them too, in which case I get fancy. 1 bowl by the fruit, 1 by the sink, 1 by the plant shelf. 3 bowls, maybe $1's worth of vinegar all told. That's your overnight knockdown. But knockdown isn't the cure. The adults you're catching tonight aren't really the problem. The eggs are the problem. So now while the saucers do their work, we go shut the nursery. If your source is fruit, this one's easy. Move the ripe stuff to the fridge. Eat the banana or bake it into bread. Your choice. Take the trash out tonight, not tomorrow. And then, and this is the part folks skip, wipe out the bottom of the trash can. There is almost always a forgotten apple core or a little sticky puddle of something down there, and that sweet residue is gnat heaven. Hot soapy rag, 10 seconds, done. If your source is the drain, listen close, because folks overcomplicate this one and waste money. You do not need bleach. You do not need a $40 bottle of foaming drain chemical. You need to physically scrape that film off the inside of the pipe. A long, skinny bottle brush works fine, or one of those zip-it tools, little plastic strips with barbs all down the side, about $3 at the hardware store. Run it down the drain, pull up a mess of gunk you'd rather not have seen, do it 2 or 3 times, then pour a kettle of boiling water down behind it. Do that 2 or 3 nights in a row. You're not poisoning the bugs. You're scraping out the room they were born in. There's a difference, and the bugs know it. Now the plants. This is the big one for folks who've gone half crazy trying to figure out where the gnats are coming from because the plants are quiet about it. No. First thing, stop watering on a schedule. Throw the calendar out. Stick your finger in the pot an inch deep. If it's wet down there, walk away. Only water when the top inch is dry to the touch. Most houseplants would rather be a little dry than a little drowned. I have killed more plants with kindness than with neglect, and I'm not afraid to say it. Dry topsoil breaks the gnat life cycle all by itself because the eggs and the little larvae need that moisture up in the top of the pot to survive. Just letting the soil dry between waterings will knock a fungus gnat problem way down inside of 2 or 3 weeks. That's it. That's the whole intervention if you're patient. If you're not patient, and I get it, my wife isn't either when she's tired of swatting at the windowsill, there's one more tool, and it's the only thing I'm going to mention today that comes in a package. It's called BTI. BTI stands for Bacillus thuringiensis israelensis, which is a mouthful. It's a naturally occurring soil bacterium. It is not a chemical pesticide. On the shelf at the hardware store, you'll see it sold as little granules called mosquito bits or as dunks for ponds and rain barrels. Here's how it works, and I think it's one of the prettiest pieces of biology in all of pest control. BT, I makes a protein. When a fungus gnat larva or a mosquito larva, same family of bug, eats that protein, it ruptures the lining of the larva's gut. The larva dies. That's the whole mechanism. It does not affect people. It does not affect pets. It does not affect honeybees. It does not affect earthworms in your garden or fish in a pond. It targets the gut of those specific larvae and nothing else on God's earth. That's why mosquito control districts drop it straight into standing water and don't worry about it. For houseplants, 2 ways to use it. You can sprinkle a little of the granules right on top of the soil. Or, and this is what I do, take a tablespoon of the bits, drop it in a gallon of water, let it steep for about half an hour, strain the chunks out and water your plants with that water. The BTI seeps into the top inch of soil, the larvae feed, the larvae die, no new gnats come up out of that pot. Do that once a week for 3 weeks while you also let the soil dry out between waterings and the infestation is over. Done. Finished. Not managed. Over. Now I owe you an honest beat because I'd rather lose your trust now than later. You will read all over the internet that a layer of cinnamon sprinkled on top of your potting soil will kill fungus gnats. People swear by it in the comment sections. Here's the straight of it. Cinnamon has some mild antifungal properties, and since the larvae are eating fungus in the soil, you can nudge the population down a little with it. But it is not a knockout. If you've got a real infestation going, cinnamon alone is not going to end it. I've watched folks sprinkle their plants brown with the stuff like they're making French toast and still have gnats 2 weeks later. Let the soil dry. Use the BTI if you need speed. That's what works. I'd rather tell you that than send you back to the spice rack on a fool's errand. Let me widen out for just a second because this is the part I actually care about. The reason I bother with any of this, the saucers, the brushes, the BTI, the whole song and dance, is that the stuff the trucks spray doesn't stay where they put it. It's been hard on honeybees for years, and it's no friend to a dog that licks the baseboard. Read the back label on one of those jugs sometime. The whole label, not just the front. You'll see why I'd rather use vinegar. A saucer of vinegar on your counter doesn't drift out the door onto the clover where the bees are working. It doesn't settle on the floor where the toddler crawls. It doesn't get on the dog's paws and then into the dog. My beagle has licked enough things in his life without me adding to the list. That's not a small thing to me. That's the whole thing. You can solve a kitchen gnat problem without putting 1 drop of poison in the house your family breathes in, and you save yourself about $199.60 off what the truck would have billed you, which is enough for a decent dinner out with whoever puts up with you. Alright, here's your weekend, plain and simple, so you don't have to scroll back. Friday night, 3 saucers, cider vinegar, 2 drops of Dawn in each. Set them by the fruit, the sink, and the plants. Take the trash out, wipe the can, move the ripe fruit to the fridge. Saturday morning, empty the saucers. They'll be full, and you'll feel a quiet little satisfaction you weren't expecting. Refill them. Take a brush to the kitchen drain. Pull up the gunk, pour the boiling kettle behind it. Walk your houseplants with your finger and only water the ones that are dry an inch down. Sunday, if the plants turned out to be your source, swing by the hardware store or the garden center and pick up a bag of mosquito bits, $5 or $6. Sprinkle a little on each pot or steep it in a gallon of water like I said. Whole operation runs you about $7 if you had to buy everything, less if there was already vinegar in the cupboard, which there usually is. Done in a weekend, no contract, nobody coming back next month with a clipboard. Now do me a favor before you click off. Down in the comments, tell me what state you're in and what's biting you right now. Could be gnats, could be ants marching across the counter, could be something you can't even put a name to. I read them, and I answer what I can get to. That's how I figure out what to film next. And speaking of next time out I'm going after the fruit fly's homelier cousin, drain flies. Those fuzzy little moth-looking things that crawl up out of the bathtub overflow and just sit there daring you. Same idea, different nursery, and I'll show you how to clear them out in a single night. Make the saucer tonight. Sleep good. I'm Walt. I'll leave the porch light on for you.